Chapter 11, Operation Double Cross. But the man for whom the Mass is said withers away little by little, and nobody can say what is the matter with him. Even the doctors can make nothing of it. They do not know that he is slowly dying of the Mass of St. Sacer. Sir James Fraser, the Golden Bough. From that point on, Boyd only tried to pass messages on through other people, not by telling them things to tell me, but by telling them things that he knew they would end up telling me. So for instance, he would show up at the record store Leo worked at and issue non-specific threats about some form of retribution should I fuck up the book contract. When a mutual friend and fan of Dagobert's Revenge sent us both copies of a CD of his music, inspired by the Ordo Lapsit Exilis, Boyd wrote him an angry letter claiming he had taught me everything I knew and was responsible for all of my success. Eventually, I grew tired of this. I couldn't imagine how we were going to promote the book together when it came out. The high I had gotten from cursing Memoma was still with me. Perhaps that was why it was so easy for me to all of the sudden consider also cursing Boyd, my former friend and brother in the OLE. At this point, I just felt cold towards him. Personally betrayed? Yes, although I had been predicting that this would happen for years, after observing how he talked about all of his other friends that he had collaborated with in the past. But I was also offended on a higher level. Boyd was betraying not only me, but the work that we had been involved in. He was an apostate to the order now, which was, quite literally to me, something sacred. It was founded directly on contact with the supernatural, sanctioned by such, and charged with an important mission regarding research into the subject of the Holy Grail. This was no laughing matter. We had both always treated the work with reverence in the past. We had talked about prioritizing the work itself above our own personal egos. Now it seemed to me that by trashing both me and our mutual projects in public, he was desecrating something divine, just to satisfy his own offended ego. I realized that for as long as he lived, Boyd would continue shooting his mouth off with his lies and his sneering, providing a mild annoyance that I would rather do without. In the process, self-destructively, he was ruining everything that we had both worked so hard for over the course of 5 years, as well as the sacrifice of many other people who had tried to help us. Then there was the fact that he was blowing the opportunity to potentially make a substantial sum of money that both he and his children desperately needed. To me, he was a scoundrel, a Judas, worthy only of contempt at this point. I truly felt that it would be justified to punish him by having him removed from the situation, so as to permanently uncomplicate things and get him out of the way of progress. Therefore, with this in my mind, but without discussing it with others, I invited Janie over to talk to Baphomet again. I came right out and asked the spirit if I could put a curse on Boyd for what he'd done. Although we hadn't talked about it before, nobody at the table seemed put off by the suggestion. Baphomet indicated that he was not allowed to talk about this. Not that we couldn't or shouldn't do it, just that he couldn't talk about it. Ryan seemed to be able to communicate with spirits in his head better than I could. Janie also was blessed with this gift. Ryan got the sense that there was some kind of supernatural protection on Boyd that Baphomet couldn't penetrate. We asked if this was true. Tracy, is there a protection on Boyd? Baphomet, yes, Tracy. Who put it there? Baphomet, God. Tracy, God? Baphomet, yes. This surprised us all. We expected him to answer that Anton LaVey was protecting him, not God. Maybe, for some reason, Baphomet in particular was constrained by God from harming Boyd. We continued questioning him. Tracy, are we allowed to talk to you about Boyd? Baphomet, no. Janie, speaking from inspiration, decided to come at it from a different angle. Baphomet had said that his mother was Lucifer. Therefore, Janie asked, Janie, can we talk to Lucifer about Boyd? Baphomet, yes, Janie. Was Lucifer offended by Boyd? Baphomet and me. Janie, you were offended too? Baphomet, yes. We decided to conjure up Lucifer on the board so that we could talk about cursing Boyd. But she seemed even more constrained in her speech on the subject than Baphomet was. The energy felt frustrated, angry, shackled, and straining at the leash. She had a hard time spelling out words. The conversation was short. Tracy, Lucifer, are you there? Lucifer, yes. Tracy, what can you tell us about Boyd? Lucifer, please. Ho. Sick. Tracy, what was that? Lucifer, please, HIELAPMFEPU 66. Janie jumped in. She was feeling Lucifer's presence in her mind, very powerfully. Janie, are you saying, please help me? Lucifer. Yes, DESTDOYHCMIMHIMCAONY sick. Janie, are you saying, please help me destroy him? Lucifer. Yes. Janie, can you help us? Lucifer. No, Janie. Well then, who can? Lucifer. Satan, Janie. Aren't you Satan? Lucifer. No, Janie. Who is Satan in relation to you? Lucifer. Never, Janie. You're not related? Lucifer. No. So apparently Baphomet, Lucifer, and Satan were all separate entities, and among them only Satan had clearance to talk to us about the subject of cursing Boyd Rice. Therefore, in hopes of finally getting some answers, we completed our diabolic triad of invocations by bringing up the spirit of Satan to talk to us. Things took on a different sort of tone immediately. Satan was all business and no mercy. He spoke very quickly and very clearly. The planchette moved with a great deal of force. We all felt his presence wash over us. A strange nausea overcame me as I realized that this time I was talking undeniably to a spirit of sheer evil. This was not an intellectual liberator or a teacher of alchemical mysteries. He was just a purely negative spirit full of violent intent. Yet I pressed forward. I didn't care who I had to deal with to get this problem solved. I was all business too. I spoke. Tracy. Satan. Are you there? Satan. Yes, Tracy. What is your name? Satan. Satan Tracy. Can you help us destroy Boyd? Satan. Yes. Tracy. Can you assist us in cursing him? Satan. Yes, Tracy. Will you? Satan. Yes, Tracy. Should we do the curse in your name? Satan. Only if you mean it. Again, a quiver of sickness went through me when I saw those words spelled out. It was clearly a warning about the seriousness of what I was getting involved in. Still, my hatred and ambition to progress in my work without Boyd getting in the way drove me onward. My questions displayed only a modicum of caution. Tracy, do you think we are ready to curse him? Satan. Yes, Tracy. What should we curse him with? Satan. Death, malice, depression. Tracy. Should we do a very specific curse? Satan. Yes. Tracy. Should we use the terms death, malice, and depression when doing the curse? Satan. Yes, Tracy. Are there other things we should curse him with too? Satan. Hate, forgetfulness, laziness, turmoil, death. A-OK. Tracy. Death is the important one? Satan. Yes, Tracy. When will he die? Satan. Month and 6, EDN sick Tracy. And 6 what? Days? Satan. Yes, Tracy. Are there any further instructions you have to give us? Satan. Yes, Tracy. What symbolic elements should we use in the ritual? Satan. Murder, death, blood. Ways to kill a Boyd boy. He then used the planchette to emphasize one of the Cross of Lorraine symbols on the banner at the top of the Ouija board. As he used it many times subsequently, I will refer to it from now on, in this context, as the Cross of Lorraine in all capital letters. Tracy. How do you want him to die? Satan. Water. Aquarius. Tracy. Water? Satan. Yes, Tracy. You want him to drown? Satan. Yes, Tracy. Is there more? Satan. Yes, Tracy. What specifically? Satan. Ready for everything and more. Tracy. Are you saying we can pick the method of death? Satan. Tracy. Do you prefer drowning? Satan. Yes. Tracy. Is a sacrifice needed? Satan. Yes. Tracy. Of an animal? Satan. No. Brian butted in, driving by inspiration in his mind's eye. Brian. Is Boyd the sacrifice? Satan. Yes. Brian pointed out that since Boyd was one of our own brothers in the OLE, to execute him was not only a punishment for crimes against ourselves and the Order, but also a sacrifice. It was his offense against the OLE in particular that had finally made him worthy of something so extreme, he said. Perhaps, Brian thought, this was why Satan had highlighted the Cross of Lorraine symbol earlier, I also thought about the fact that the cross of Lorraine was a double cross, and Boyd had double-crossed us. We were talking about doing the same to him now. It was a nice play on words, so I asked, Tracy, should we use the cross of Lorraine in the ritual? Satan. Yes, Tracy. Should we drown the cross of Lorraine ritually? Satan. Yes, Tracy. Should we use images in the ritual? Satan. Yes, Tracy. Pictures of Boyd? Satan. Yes. Tracy. Are there any other essential elements? Satan. INCEN. Sick. Tracy. Incense? Satan. Yes. Tracy. What other elements? Satan. Sigils and verse. Tracy. Verse. Satan. Unto me, Tracy. Should we use stuff from the Satanic Bible? Satan. Yes. Tracy. Is Anton LaVey still protecting Boyd from beyond the grave? Satan. Yes. Tracy, does he have any power compared to you? Satan. No, Tracy. Which part of the Satanic Bible should we use? Satan. Water. The Book of Leviathan was a chapter in LaVey's Bible dedicated to the sea dragon of the infernal watery abyss. I thought this might be what he meant. So I asked, Tracy, the Book of Leviathan? Satan. Yes. Janie, who was obsessed with sigil magic, was sure that this was an essential element of the ritual. She inquired, Janie, what kind of sigil should we use? Satan. 3 Janie. 3 sigils? Satan. Yes, Janie. What's the first one? Satan. JM. Cross of Lorraine Janie. What does JM stand for? Satan. Janie. Murder. Janie. Should I make a sigil out of the word murder? Satan. Yes, Janie. Should we make 3 sigils for the 3 people in the ritual? Satan. Yes. I began to have spontaneous visions of how the rite should play out, and what it would result in. Driven by infernal inspiration, I jumped back in. Tracy. So the first one is Janie's sigil with the word murder? Satan. Already 1. Yes, Tracy. Should Janie use a sigil that she's already created? Satan. Yes. Cross of Lorraine. Tracy. Do you mean we should use the cross as one of the sigils? Satan. No, Tracy. Why do you keep going to the cross then? Satan. Drown. Tracy. Yes, we're going to drown the cross in the ritual. Should we put the cross in all 3 of the sigils? Satan. No, Tracy. Should the cross of Lorraine be in just one of the sigils? Satan. Cross of Lorraine. No. Tracy. What should Brian's sigil be? Satan. Go to hell. Boyd. Tracy. What should my sigil be? Satan. Death to Boyd. Yes. Tracy. What is the best scenario in which for Boyd to die? Satan. Can't Tracy. Should it be suicide? Satan. Yes. Tracy. Should he kill himself and somehow drown in the process? Satan. Yes. Tracy. Should he drown in alcohol and vomit? Satan. Yes. Tracy. Should we drown the cross of Lorraine in beer? Satan. Yes, Tracy. What else do we need? Satan. When? Cross of Lorraine. Tracy. Should we drown the cross at midnight on Friday? Satan. Yes, Tracy. What else is important for us to do? Satan. Put cross of Lorraine in dirt after at Boyd Janie. You mean we should put it in the dirt by where he lives? Satan. Yes. Janie. Who should bury it? Satan. You 2. Janie, Tracy and me. Satan. Yes. Janie. What day? Satan. Sunday, Janie. What should we do with the cross of Lorraine after the ritual but before we bury? Satan. Put in black cloth, Janie. Anything else? Satan. No, Janie. Can you speak the language of light? Satan. Yes, Janie. Are there other methods to communicate with you besides the Ouija board? Satan. MED, Janie. Meditation. Satan. Yes, Janie. What else do you have to say? In reply, he wrote out a strange string of letters really fast. IMIKEUAONDYOUV. Then touched the cross of Lorraine again. The vibe in the room was suddenly pleasant and fun, like a tension had just been released. I think Satan was getting so excited that he was moving the planchette too quickly. He had a hard time spelling out the words he was trying to say. What does that mean? Janie asked. He slowed down a bit, and this time the message was straightforward, if bone-chilling. I like you, and you will be rewarded. I must admit, That last line creeped me out quite a lot. What kind of reward could you earn for collaborating with Satan to kill a man? I didn't allow myself to think about it much because the planchette kept moving. It said, yes. I felt that this was mean to affirm what I was thinking in my mind. I was going to be rewarded by Satan in some way on earth for doing this, but with all of the eternal consequences that might come of making a pact with the devil. He was also reminding me that he could read my thoughts just like Baphomet, Cain, and even Jean Cocteau had been able to. He kept speaking. I hate Boyd so much. We all laughed at that. He continued. Yes. We laughed even harder. This helped to evaporate the lingering Protestant guilt that had been distracting me. Janie went on with her questions. Janie, how long have you hated Boyd? Satan. 7 years, Janie. Do you hate him because he is a poser? Satan. Yes. Brian had a hunch about this subject. Does it have something to do with Anton's death? He asked. The reply came in the affirmative. What do you hate most about Boyd? Janie wanted to know. He swiftly and forcefully answered with the word L-E-L-E and the cross of Lorraine. Are you talking about the Council of Nine and stuff? I inquired. I was thinking about what Cain had told us about Boyd the first time we spoke to him. Remember, he said that Boyd was going to lose his record contract with Mute. This would supposedly happen because of something said in his biography. He then emphatically stated that Boyd was not on Church of Satan's Council of 9 Inches. Cain had vehemently proclaimed that Boyd was not on the council, sic OF9. Whether this meant he was not presently on the council, or that he had never been, I am unsure. When Satan responded, you could feel his resentment. Our hands were shaking as the planchette moved around the board. Satan, he stole. Sick. Tracy, he stole? Satan, yes, Tracy. What did he steal? Satan, ideas and lied about it. Tracy, whose ideas? Satan. Many, Tracy. Is the list too long to list? Satan. Yes, Tracy. What curses does he presently have besides drink? Satan, love, hate, cross of Lorraine. Tracy, should Anthony S. be cursed as well? Satan, yes. Tracy, why? Satan, affiliate, instigator, fake Satanist Janie. Am I a fake Satanist? Satan. No, Janie. What is the real satanic church? Satan, choice and freedom. Tracy. Should Anthony S. be afflicted by the same curse as Boyd? Satan. No, Tracy. What should we curse Anthony S. with? Satan. Rejection from Boyd and Co.'s. Tracy. What other instructions do you have? Satan. And blood from you 3, Janie. Should we bleed onto the sigils? Satan. Yes, Janie. Should we destroy the sigils in fire? Satan. Yes, Tracy. Should we ritually throw the sigils into the abyss? Satan. Yes. Tracy, after we drown the cross of Lorraine? Satan. Yes, Tracy. Should we throw the ashes of the sigils in with the drowned cross? Satan. Yes. We ended up calling our ritual Operation Double Cross. It was partially inspired by the so-named counter-espionage system of running double agents that was used by British intelligence during World War II. At the same time, coincidentally, French anti-fascist agents were using the Cross of Lorraine as their symbol. In our context, double cross was a reference to our order's symbol, the double-barred cross, and also to the concept of betrayal. It symbolized Boyd's betrayal of us, and our return of the favor. I remember that we erected Boyd's wooden Cross of Lorraine, which he had still been too lazy to pick up from our house, and placed it over the altar. On it, we tacked up the images that we're going to meditate on during the rite. There we had illustrations of the concepts of death, malice, depression, hate, forgetfulness, laziness, and turmoil. All of the specific curses that Satan had told us to lay upon Boyd. The death images were mostly of murder victims, since Satan had used the word murder when telling us how Janie should design a sigil to use in the ritual. I remember that one of the pictures we used was of a white farmer in South Africa who had his face completely smashed in by a marauding gang of hoodlums. Another was of a hanged lynching victim in the American South. To illustrate the real victim, I chose a disgusting new picture of Boyd that had recently showed up on the internet. It showed him dressed up in his Mussolini outfit for Halloween, drunk off his ass, stretching his mouth out with his fingers to make a silly face. The picture made me want to puke, and that was what I always wanted to associate him with in my mind from that moment forward. Likewise, the photo of Anthony S. that I picked was equally contemptible. It was one he had sent me in the mail, along with his first fan letter. It showed him seated on some gilded throne somewhere, wearing a cheap brown suit, looking like a douchebag. On the altar itself, which was one of Brian's large nightstands that he had, were the 3 sigils. The ones for Brian and I were nicely designed by him and printed out on fine parchment. A la Austin Osman Spare, the sigils were glyphs made out of the letters used to form the words of a spell. In this case, we had one made from the words Death to Boyd, one made of Go to Hell Boyd, and one of Janie's design that I believe included the word murder. It is interesting for me to note, now, looking back on this event in my life, that all 3 of us were somehow okay with what seemed to us like the moral ambiguity of the situation. The words murder and even suicide were being used interchangeably with sacrifice, execution, punishment, and justice. On reflection, of course, I see that murder is the only word that applies. The real motivation was not justice so much as revenge. It seems that we had all been slowly normalized to a different code of morality over these years of talking to demons. Of course, etymologically, the word Satan has the Semitic meaning of accuser or adversary, implying specifically the concept of a prosecutor in a divine court of law. The idea is that Satan never fails to find fault in sinners, seeking to exact justice against them to the precise letter of the law, even when God chooses to overlook and forgive their sins, as we see in the book of Job. Perhaps that was why Satan in particular was needed, to help us carry out this unpleasant task. Maybe throughout the millennia of man's rule on earth, it has been the role of Satan to mete out the necessary evil that moves history. We performed the ritual on a Friday night, starting right before midnight so that the drowning of the cross would occur at the stroke of 12. That night, Leah was out. She knew nothing about what we were doing, and we never discussed it with her. I was relieved to find that the topic never came up between her and I. She didn't even mention it to me when it came to pass that everybody in the world found out exactly what we had done. This happened because I emailed the text of the ritual to Janie the day before we performed it. Somehow Janie's email got hacked by someone who was interested in publicly exposing the ritual. So this person posted it to the Boyd Rice fan club list on Yahoo in its entirety. The security leak definitely put an unpleasant taint on an already sordid circumstance. The whole affair, the interpersonal problems with Boyd, his public lying and bitch fighting, my own efforts to kill him with voodoo, it all seemed beneath me. I wanted to forget the whole business and move on to something more important. So did Brian. We packed up our things and headed back to Portland for a change of scenery. Chapter 12. Order out of chaos. Language creates structures, relatedness, and psychological order which we think of as reality. The sequential nature of language and thought create time, but eternity is beyond time, and consequentially beyond thought. If eternity is beyond thought and its paranoid obsession with order, then eternity must be chaos. The Dragon Legacy, Nicholas DeVere. Back in Portland, things were very busy. Despite the public dust-up with Boyd, the Ordo Lapsit Exilis had not been hurt at all. We were swamped with demands from our members, who wanted us to present them with more information and activities. They wanted books to read and rituals to do. We tried to oblige. I began corresponding closely with several of the more involved and promising members. I told them a little bit about our conversations with spirits, and even sent excerpts of some of the transcripts. The people I told were fascinated. I started the process of outlining a comprehensive book for the quartermasters that would explain the order's purpose metaphysically and detail the sorts of magical work that they should be engaged in. I felt it would be appropriate to even explain to them how to contact and collaborate with Baphomet themselves. That way, the work of the order would expand exponentially in ways that I wasn't even capable of imagining at the time. I also took a greater part in the public functioning of the Dragon Court. They had started something called the Dragon Society, which was meant to function as the public face and the outer lowermost degree of membership in the court. I helped by moderating their forum and talking to the members online. However, as usual, they were a rowdy and demanding bunch. Like the OLE members, they wanted us to lead them in fun activities. But we didn't really have much for them to do yet, and that pissed a lot of them off. Predictably, some of them started to get threatening towards me, Martin, and Nicholas, who was removed from the situation since he had not been on the internet in a few years. I could tell that more schisms were brewing, with more fake dragon courts eager to crawl out of the woodwork, led by pathetic DeVere wannabes. However, as had been my style with the dragon court all along, I didn't pay much attention because I was too busy doing my own thing. The magazine, unfortunately, wasn't working out at all anymore. Too much money had been spent on that last issue because of the printer who screwed us over. It didn't seem like it would be profitable to raise funds for another issue. Besides, I had learned a lot about the book publishing industry now, and that seemed like a much more worthwhile venture. It also seemed more suited to the writing I was doing now, which was about topics that required much more space to explore than what was available in a magazine. I was almost relieved when I got the letter in the mail from Red Wheel/Wiser Publishing, saying that they had ended the book contract with Boyd and me. They had discovered a website published by one of Boyd's friends, in which they had uploaded the entire text of the book from the file I had provided to Anthony S., with only Boyd's name listed as the author. This was a violation of the contract terms, and so they had decided not to publish the book after all. However, they realized this was not my fault and invited me to submit future works for consideration. I was actually happy not to be stuck in any more business arrangements with Boyd. I was also glad to see Boyd's efforts come to nothing. I think he thought that he was going to get away with it, that the book would be published and he would get money from it, but he would still get to tell his friends that he wrote the book all by himself. He probably had it put on the web because he just couldn't wait until the book came out to show his friends what he had done. So instead, I decided to rewrite the entire thing, to make it exactly how I wanted it, and to eliminate all of Boyd's contributions. The result was a much better book, which I titled The Merovingian Mythos and the Mystery of Rennes-le-Château. We started a new company, Dragon Key Press, and folded Dagobert's Revenge magazine for good. A few weeks later, we received news that Jeannie had moved back to Portland, where she had lived before. I was happy to have another friend in the area, especially another member of the OLE. She came over to our apartment soon after moving. We all played Monopoly and drank champagne. Afterwards, we got to talking about the fact that Boyd wasn't dead yet. We decided to call up Satan on the Ouija board to ask him if there was anything else we needed to do to complete the curse. Here is how the discussion went. Tracy, can we talk about Boyd? Satan. Boyd, if dead. I asked him if he meant to say Boyd is dead, but he didn't answer clearly, so I carried on with my questions. Tracy, what should we do to make Boyd die? Satan. Nothing, Tracy. Really? Satan. Really no, not feel guilty. Except, sick, happiness because of death, needs right of death, code of honor. Tracy, there's nothing we can do to hasten it? Satan. Silent. Write about it. Piss him off. Call him ADOA. Dead. Anything. Revenge. Another curse and trash him for weeks nonstop. Tracy, should we put stuff about Boyd on our website? Satan. Yes. Further and beyond. Tracy, how does Anthony S. feel about Boyd now? Satan. Hate of a Satanist. A couple of weeks later, Janie invited me to her studio apartment in downtown Portland. She pulled down the Murphy bed, and we used the board right there. We called up Baphomet. We talked about a variety of things, starting with personal stuff. Then the demon took it in a direction of his own. At first I asked about Brian. He had struggled for years with being unable to sleep at night and wake up in the morning. Instead, he stayed up all night and slept all day. He said he was incapable of doing anything else. It was really becoming an issue in our lives. I remembered that Cain had told us Brian was the victim of a curse. So I asked, Tracy, is there still a curse of lethargy on Brian? Baphomet. Yes. Brian. He owes. Tracy. He owes what? Baphomet. Owes me seeds. Tracy. What? Baphomet. He owes me 6 seeds. Tracy, 6 seeds? Baphomet. Yes, 6. Tracy. Why 6? Baphomet. Because Satan is 6. No, some to me, some to Mom, Brian. Only more than a decade later did I come to understand what this message from Baphomet referred to. It had to have somehow been a reference to the story from Greek mythology of the rape and kidnapping of Persephone by Hades. After being dragged to the underworld and forced to marry its king, she became cursed to stay eternally because she ate the food of the realm of the dead. Giving in to her hunger, she ate 6 pomegranate seeds, damning herself forever. So it could be that Baphomet was saying Brian had taken something, gained somehow from the underworld, and now owed something in return. The curse of lethargy on Brian was in some way a penance for this. The word even comes from Lethe, a river in Hades that brought forgetfulness to anyone who drank from it. Also, perhaps by mom, Baphomet was referring to Lucifer, whom he had said earlier was his mother, or it could have for some reason been a reference to Brian's mother. Given all of these curses plaguing everybody, Janie asked a very sensible question. How can we stop all of the curses on us at once? Baphomet replied, effort deliberate. ZOS, Kia, beyond sick matter. Tradition is useful. Zos Kia is a term coined by Aleister Crowley-influenced author Kenneth Grant to refer to the artistic style of Aleister Crowley-inspired artist Austin Osman Spare. It is a difficult term to define. Both Spare and Grant had contributed to the development of sigil magic and Janie as a magician. I sensed that Baphomet had something on his mind, so I asked, Tracy, okay, is there anything else you want to talk about? Baphomet. Mystery. Yes. Tracy. What do you mean? Baphomet. Ordered Tracy. You mean the OLE? Do you want us to keep doing it? Baphomet. Yes. Because of network and propaganda. Yes. Plan on arts and entertainment. Tracy. What should the mysteries of the OLE be? Baphomet. Dares. AMORC. This is a reference to the ancient mystical order Rosicrucis, the modern Rosicrucian order started by Harvey Spender Lewis in 1915. They ran an organization in which the outer ranks of students participated in lessons and initiations through mail-order programs. They would receive reading materials, including instructions on how to conduct mediation sessions and rituals, via the U.S. Postal Service from the organization's headquarters in San Jose, California. I assumed Baphomet's mention of them was intended to indicate that we could run our order in a similar way. This was encouraging, since it was what we had already been doing. I assumed the word dares meant initiatory ordeals, trials, or hazing rites. I also thought of that magical phrase which Eliphas Levi referred to as the 4 powers of the Sphinx, and which alchemist Eugene Cancelliet attributed to Zoroaster, sire, potere, audire, tacere, to know, to will, to dare, to keep silent. I asked more questions. Tracy, what should Janie do for the OLE? Baphomet. Happy because she is original and really a priestess. Tracy, are you going to send us some new people to join? Baphomet. Yes. Tracy, what other advice do you have for us? Baphomet. Never quit and PROPAP sick money very soon. But not yet. Other time. Tracy, are Nicholas DeVere and his friend, named redacted government agents? Baphomet, not Nick Tracy. Where is Drakenberg? Baphomet Island. Tracy, will we somehow be able to purchase a private island on which to create the Kingdom of Drakenberg? Baphomet. Yes, Tracy. Will we be able to raise the money through the Ordo Lapsit Exilis? Baphomet. Yes, Tracy. What happens to DeVere when he is crowned King of Drakenberg? Baphomet. Too much of everything. Really, Tracy? Is Nick the Antichrist? Baphomet. Yes. Tracy. Then why did you tell us earlier that it was Burt Russell? Baphomet. Party fun, Tracy. So will everyone in the world unite under Nick's rule? Baphomet. Not unite. More like chaos. And then order. More than now. Tracy. Who is his heir going to be? Baphomet. Mary. I didn't know who Mary was, but I was confident that I was going to find out eventually. Baphomet sounded serious. I wasn't sure if I should take him at his word about DeVere being the Antichrist, since he admitted that he had lied about that subject earlier. But I thought it was quite likely that events were going to transpire soon that would make this idea seem all too real and plausible. When I left Janie's apartment, my mind was a buzz. I was thinking about rituals I wanted to write for the OLE. I was also thinking about what it would really mean if Nicholas de Vere was the Antichrist. What if crowning him the King of Drakenberg really did somehow bring him to a position of world power? What if power could exist in ways we hadn't even thought of yet? These questions preoccupied me in the weeks to come.